Terraria is full of fun and useful mounts, but some of them are definitely worse and better than others. So today we're going to be looking at literally every single mount in Terraria and ranking them from worst to best through a tier list. If you like this kind of content, make sure to subscribe because we're closing in on 20k, and let's get into it. The first mount that most players will get in Terraria is the Slimy Saddle. The Slimy Saddle is of course dropped by King Slime, and it ended up being one of Terraria's most iconic mounts by far. What this mount can do is pretty simple. You can jump super high, you can fall down way faster, and you can even jump on enemies. As you would expect, this is a pretty useful mount overall. The extended jump height can be great in the early game, especially if you don't have hooks or other movement accessories. Falling down so fast can be a huge time saver, especially in areas like, say, a elevator where you need to get super far down very quickly. I'm gonna be completely honest and say that I don't think this is Terraria's best mount in the entire world, like some people will have you believe. It's great for cheesing certain boss fights, it's not that slow, and it can be really useful in a lot of ways, but I don't think it stands out quite as much as some of the items that you can obtain later in the game. Because of all of that, I think the Slimy Saddle is a very fair A tier. The Honeyed Goggles can be obtained by killing Queen Bee, and they summon the Bee mount. The Bee mount is extremely slow on the ground, but it is capable of flying, and it will greatly increase in speed while doing so. When you are flying, you actually do go pretty fast, but there is one big problem with this mount, which is that it doesn't last forever. Obviously that makes sense because you get this mount so early in the game, but it also makes it a lot less useful than you would think at first. After just 10 seconds, the Bee mount will start to glide down, and you'll have to wait over 3 seconds on the ground to be able to use it and fly again. Considering that you can also only get this through Queen Bee, which is late into pre-hard mode, you probably have way better options for movement by this point. Now, it's not completely useless, and there are definitely worse mounts in the game, but it's also not even close to being great. So because of that, it's going in the C tier. Now let's talk about the Hardy Saddle. The Hardy Saddle has an 8% chance of being obtained from golden crates, which is honestly pretty low, and what it does is it summons the Turtle mount. The Turtle is basically what you would expect from a turtle, which is that it moves very slowly and gradually gets a little bit faster. The one saving grace for this mount is that when you go into the water, it starts going incredibly fast. The big problem with this, and I've brought this up with other items in the past, is that water exploration in Terraria doesn't really matter. You can use it to cheese some boss fights and maybe even invasions, but for the most part, an average Terraria player has no need for underwater use in Terraria. I think that the speed at which the turtle moves in the overworld definitely doesn't justify how rare it is to obtain. It can be nice if you get it on accident and then you have it as a mount or a backup, but if you're actually searching to get every single mount in Terraria, this one can be really annoying. If I'm being completely honest, I don't think there are any terrible mounts in Terraria, and I think all of them can be used in one way or another, but compared to the other mounts in Terraria, I think the turtle is very bad, and because of that, the turtle mount is going in the F tier. The Fuzzy Carrot is given to the player after completing 5 angler quests, and of course it summons the Bunny mount. The Bunny moves at a relatively quick speed overall, comparable to the Terra Spark boots, which a lot of players consider one of Terraria's most useful items. It's also not very hard to obtain because, like I said before, you can get it right after doing 5 angler fishing quests, which really doesn't take that long. With that being said, the Bunny mount still isn't the fastest mount in the entire game, or anything of the sort. It has a top speed of 40 miles per hour, which is pretty good, but definitely not the best. It also can't jump super high consistently, and it's very bad during boss fights. The Bunny mount is not very fun to use, it's very simple, and it doesn't really provide the best movement, but at the same time, it's not really that hard to get, and it stacks with accessories, and so I would say it's a C tier mount. The Pogo Stick mount is the next one to talk about, and it can be purchased from the Party Girl for 25 gold coins, which is pretty good. The Pogo Stick is exactly what you would expect. It can bounce super high, super fast, but it can't really move that quickly. I really like the concept for the Pogo Stick, but unfortunately, I think that it's just way too little, way too late. In order to buy this mount, you need the Party Girl NPC to be in your world, which already requires having like 14 other NPCs present. By the time you have that many NPCs, you probably have way better gear anyway, and you have way better movement accessories than the Pogo Stick. For example, basically any double jump accessory like the Blizzard in a bottle, Cloud in a bottle, or Desert in a bottle are gonna be way more useful when fighting enemies or even traveling the world than the Pogo Stick. A few items in Terraria might not technically jump as high as the Pogo Stick does, but the Pogo Stick is also very janky and is kind of difficult to use. And don't even try to use this during combat because we all know there's not really any point in doing that. I don't really hate the idea of the Pogo Stick, and I think it's a really fun mount. Personally, I love it, but I think it's fair to put it in the D tier. Speaking of mounts bought from NPCs, the golf cart keys can be purchased from the golfer for 50 gold after Skeletron has been defeated, and with that you can ride the golf cart. I was expecting this to be a very bad mount when I tested tested it, but to be completely honest, I think it's pretty good. The golf cart is way faster than the bunny mount, for example. It has a higher top speed and its acceleration is significantly faster. On top of that, once you reach 20 miles per hour in the golf cart, it'll start to do damage to enemies. The golf cart also reduces fall damage by 80%, and its jump height will also stack with extra jump accessories like the cloud in a bottle, and because of that, I think the golf cart should go in the B tier. Moving on, the mollusk whistle can be purchased from the zoologist for 20 coins after filling out 25% of the bestiary, and it summons the flamingo. The flamingo is slower than other mounts like the bunny and golf cart mount. It also raises the player's height from 3 to 4 blocks, which makes it a lot harder to get through tight spaces. The benefits of this mount is that while riding the flamingo, the player gets a little bit of extra fishing power while touching liquid, and it also reduces fall damage by 80%. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, I don't think this mount is very good. Filling out 25% of the bestiary can take a lot longer than you think it would, and it's not worth the amount of money it costs. And because of that, I think the flamingo is going in the D tier. Another mount that can be purchased from the zoologist are the various saddles, which you can buy after completing 30% of the bestiary. There are 3 different saddles in Terraria, and they summon 3 different horses, but the only one that really matters is the white horse because this one does look the best. That's obviously subjective though, so let's talk about what's not. The horse's top running speed is actually pretty good, being 46 miles per hour compared to something like the golf cart's 41 miles per hour. When moving at nearly top speed, the horse also starts dealing damage to enemies and critters they run into. You're not going to get anything extraordinary out of the horse, and it does take a little bit of time to gain momentum, but aside from that, I wouldn't say there are any big problems. I think the horse is a very middle of the road mount. B tier. Now we can finally move on from mounts purchased from NPCs, starting with the superheated blood. While fishing in lava, you can get an obsidian crate, and through obsidian crates, you have a 19% chance to get the superheated blood, which summons the lava shark. The lava shark is completely useless on the surface, but similarly to the turtle, it moves extremely fast underwater. Like I said before though, underwater exploration does not matter in Terraria. Luckily, that's not all this shark can do. The lava shark is able to swim just as fast in lava, and more importantly, it completely negates all lava damage while you're using it. As long as you aren't directly touching an item like Hellstone, you can stay in lava as long as you want, as long as you're using the lava shark mount, which is actually pretty cool. Again though, I don't think this is going to be the most useful thing in most cases. I guess for the Wall of Flesh fight, you could try getting an infinite lava bucket and then fill your entire underworld with lava, and then you would definitely be set with the lava shark, but nobody's doing that. Nobody's doing that. At the end of the day, I think the lava shark is a B tier mount. Moving on to hard mode, the basilisk mount can be summoned with the ancient horn, which has a 2% chance of being dropped by basilisks. This seems like a pretty decent Terraria mount on the surface. It's decently fast, it has really good jump height, and it deals decent damage to enemies. I do want to remind you though that you can only get the basilisk mount after entering hard mode. This is when enemies have way more health, they do way more damage, and you need significantly better accessories like wings to actually have good movement. If your choices are between improving your movement with Terra Spark boots and wings versus spending just as much time to get the basilisk mount, which one are you gonna choose? That's the problem. It's a decent mount, but it's not that good for when you can obtain it in the game. And because of that, I would say the basilisk mount goes in C tier. This item, which I can't pronounce for some reason, has a 1 in 30 or 1 in 25 chance of being dropped by wolves. You'd expect it to put you on top of a wolf, but it's way cooler. It turns you into a wolf. As far as I'm aware, there is no mount like this in Terraria right now. Your movement speed is a lot better than base game Terraria, but a big problem is that you can't actually use a lot of movement accessories as a wolf. Now, I'm sure you weren't expecting to fight bosses or invasions as a wolf anyway, but that is still a big downside. I think you really got to give credit to the concept of the wolf mount, because transforming into a thing instead of just riding it is way cooler. I'm 90% sure they're going to be adding more stuff like this in Terraria 1.4.5, and I can't wait to see it. The wolf mount itself isn't going to do you a bunch of favors, but considering it's so cool, I still think it should be in B tier. The blessed apple has a 1 in 30 chance of being dropped by unicorns. The unicorn is basically the horse mount on steroids. It's way faster, it has more jumps, and more importantly, it actually does decent damage. Accessories also stack with this mount, giving it better movement if you have good movement accessories. There's not that much unique stuff to say about the unicorn because it really is just like the horse mount, but a lot better. Even though this item is obtained much later in the game than the horse, and it's a lot harder to obtain, I would still say that it's a great mount, and because of that, it's going in the A tier. The scaly truffle can be obtained by fishing fishing in any underground ice biome that overlaps with the World Evil or the Hollow. And with the Scaly Truffle, you can summon the Pigron. For whatever reason, the Pigron sort of has a cult following on the internet when it comes to Terraria fans. I was actually surprised by how good the Pigron's flight actually is. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's still not even close to as good as most wings in the game, but it's not even that far off. The Pigron's flight time and speed is pretty comparable to, say, the bee wings, which a lot of people say aren't that bad. It can also reach a speed of 46 miles per hour on land, which isn't terrible either and is comparable to the horse mount. I still wouldn't say this is a perfect mount though, or anything even close. The Pigron is super inconsistent to obtain, and actually getting it can take a long time, so for most players it's more than worth it to just craft some better wings and rely on that instead. Just like other fishing items, you could happen to get the Pigron mount, and that would be a great benefit, especially if you were fishing for something like the Crystal Serpent and you just happen to get this item anyway. With that being said, I don't think this item deserves quite as much praise as it gets. I would say that it belongs in the B tier. The next mount is the Winged Slime mount, which can be obtained by getting the Gelatinous Pillion. The Gelatinous Pillion has a 1 in 2 chance of being dropped by Queen Slime in Expert mode, so it's actually super easy to get. I'm gonna put my grievances with Queen Slime away for a few seconds and try to be as fair as possible, and I will tell you, this is a great mount. It's not the best mount in the game, but it's basically an improvement to the original Slimy saddle that you get in pre-hard mode. It can go super high super fast. In fact, I would bet that it has faster momentum building than most wings even late into the game. Aside from that, it's good for basically everything the original Slimy saddle is good for. All things considered, I would say it's just as good as the original mount, and it belongs in the A tier. Now we're getting into some pretty late game mounts, starting with the Reindeer Bells. The Reindeer Bells have an extremely small chance of being dropped by the Ice Queen during or after Wave 15 of the Frost Moon event. At first, this definitely doesn't look worth it for how difficult it is to obtain, but the second you start flying into the sky and building momentum, you realize why. If you want to get away from a bunch of enemies or just get from point A to B super quickly, the Reindeer mount is just as good, if not better, than pretty much anything else in the game. If you could obtain the Reindeer mount earlier in the game, like pre-mech bosses, then it would arguably be the most useful mount in Terraria. Unfortunately though, you don't get this weapon that early. In fact, it's very late into the game after Plantera, and for most players after Golem. Because of that, I would say that it's a good mount, but not the best mount, and I think it belongs in the B tier. The Brain Scrambler has a 1 in 30 chance of being dropped by some enemies during the Martian Madness event, and it summons the Skutlix. The Skutlix is very simply a terrible mount. It wouldn't even be that good early in the game, but especially later in the game post-Golem, it's never worth getting. It moves around and jumps around just like any other mount that you could obtain before it, except the only thing going for it is that it shoots lasers. These lasers are okay, but they don't do nearly enough damage for when you can obtain them in the game, and so you end up just dying if you try to use them in a higher difficulty. If you're going for a post-Plantera mount in Terraria, the Skutlix mount is simply your worst choice by far, and because of that, I think it belongs in the F tier. Another item obtainable during the Martian Madness event is the Cosmic Car Key, which is dropped by Martian saucers. The Cosmic Car Key, unlike the Skutlix, summons the UFO, which is an amazing mount. The UFO mount gives you completely unlimited flight at any time. While there are mounts later in the game that also give you that same luxury, they're pretty much all only obtainable in Expert or Master mode, while this item is obtainable in Classic mode. A lot of Terraria veterans aren't going to like this, but I think that does make the item a lot more valuable, because casual players or people on their first playthrough can get insane value out of the Cosmic Car Key that they can't get out of certain other items. Some people may disagree, but I've simply used this item far too much when playing the game with my friends, and I think it belongs in the S tier. Next up, we've got the Witch's Broom, which has a 5 to 20% chance of dropping from the Morning Wood during the Pumpkin Moon event. When I was saying there's items like the UFO but slightly better, this is exactly the item I was talking about. The Witch's Broom also gives you unlimited flight, but with way better movement. It has better momentum, it can go faster, and it feels a lot smoother. Just like the UFO, I would put it in the S tier. The Shrimpy Truffle is an item that's dropped by Duke Fishron in Expert mode or higher, and it summons the Cute Fishron mount. This mount goes at an okay speed, and just like the previous two mounts, can fly infinitely. That's not all that this mount can offer though. Just like a few other mounts, the second you enter water, you go insanely fast. Underwater movement with the Cute Fishron mount is pretty much the fastest you can possibly get in Terraria. This wouldn't be a huge benefit if it just lasted underwater, but you actually get a 5-ish second speed boost even after you leave water as long as you've been in it recently. Cute Fishron also gets extremely fast during rain because it still counts as being underwater, which is unbelievable. I think this mount has a few pretty pretty obvious weaknesses, but at the same time it has some very big strengths, and because of that I would put it in the A tier. The drill containment unit is the only post-Moonlord mount in the entire game, and it makes sense why. To craft this item you need 40 Luminite bars, 40 Chlorophyte bars, 40 Shroomite bars, 40 Spectre bars, 40 Hellstone bars, and 40 Meteorite bars. That sounds like a nightmare to obtain, and it definitely is, but at the same time it is more than worth it. As we all know by now, the drill containment unit can move extremely fast through blocks. It's more effective and useful than pretty much any pickaxe in the game, and not only can it destroy blocks, but it can destroy walls just as fast. If you need to mine out terrain or even get rid of an old build super quickly, the drill containment unit will always be the best thing to use. Once again, we have another mount that is going in the S tier. We've talked about most of Terraria's mounts by now, but if you didn't know, Master Mode adds a few other mounts to the game. I don't want to take quite as long with these Master Mode mounts, so we're going to do a speed run and go through all of them as fast as we can. The Dark Mage's Tome has a 1 in 4 chance of being dropped by the Dark Mage in Master Mode. It allows you to hover in the air for an okay amount of time, and you also go decently fast, but by the time you obtain it, it's basically useless, and it's a very janky and weird item to use. D tier. The Goat Skull has a 1 in 4 chance of being dropped by the Wall of Flesh, and it's effectively the exact same as the Unicorn mount. Considering this is basically the Unicorn mount, but it's easier to obtain, can be obtained earlier in the game, and looks way cooler, I think it should be in the S tier. The Black Spot has a 1 in 4 chance of being dropped by the Flying Dutchman in Master Mode, and it summons the Pirate Ship mount. The Pirate Ship mount is pretty much the UFO. It flies around and has nearly infinite flight, except you can obtain it way earlier in the game. I think it's barely not as valuable as the mounts in S tier though, so I'm going to put it in the A tier. The Hexed Branch has a 6 to 25% chance of being dropped by the Morning Wood during the Pumpkin Moon event, and it summons the Tree mount. The Tree mount can go at nearly 100 miles per hour as long as it's been on a flat surface for a long enough amount of time, and I pretty much can't think of a single thing that goes that fast in Terraria, so it's going in S tier. The Toy Tank has a 6 to 25% chance of being dropped by the Santa NK1 during the Frost Moon, and it summons the Sand Tank mount. The Sand Tank is basically the Scuttlix but better. It has better movement and it fires projectiles that do more damage. A tier. And there you have it. That's every single mount in Terraria ranked from worst to best. Make sure to join the Discord server if you enjoy my videos or want to have discussions about Terraria. See you next time. Bye bye.